Howdy, folks. Justin here, and I've had a lot of requests for uh, videos about how to draft. I like drafting quite a bit, and I am pretty successful at it. Five, six, 7 wins is the norm. So I'm going to walk through a best case scenario draft. Is what I'm going to try to do. I know a lot of the times I draft meme cards. Uh, Cards that I just want to play with. And sometimes my wins suffer as a result. And sometimes the fact that I've played a million hours of this game lets me, carries me when I draft bizarre cards. But none of those shenanigans today. I'm just going to do something straightforward and make the best of whatever picks we get. And I'll explain each pick as I make them in a level of detail that I usually don't do, so that hopefully we can, you know, hopefully there's some kind of wisdom to be gleaned there. Because I am definitely more successful at draft than I am in constructed, although I think I'm fairly successful in constructed as well. So here we have a choice between Archer, Mage, and Scout. The class you pick is probably not the most important thing you decide while you're drafting, but it can definitely have a huge impact, obviously, on what types of decks are available to you to forge. Um, just a couple of general rules of thumb. I prefer to draft the colors that have the best removal available to them. Right. In as far as that goes, then I think red has the weakest removal, followed by purple. Um, both are pretty crappy as far as removal goes, but purple has access to bigger butt creatures and like better guard creatures, which can function as poor man's removal in the right situation. And then the best removal, the next tier of removal, I would say, is green with finish off effects like finish off and leaf lurker, and in Archer, Felon History Reaver, as well as a host of lethal creatures. More, I would argue, than are available in purple. And then you have the premium removal colors, blue and yellow, with access to, in blue, Firebolt, Lightning Bolt, Firestorm, Ice Storm, and in yellow, the choicest of removal spells in Piercing Javelin, Execute, Aerostorm, and Sanctuary Raid, the new unconditional 7 magical removal spell. Um, that's not to say that removal is the only thing you're looking for. You're also looking for cards that have built-in 2-for-1s, meaning situations where it will take 2 of your opponent's cards to answer your 1 card. A good example of just an obvious 2-for-1 is a triggered Golden Saint. That's a 4/4 creature in each lane for 6 magicka. More than likely going to require 2 of your opponent's resources to deal with your 1 resource. Not the most reliable example of this, because you have to obviously have more life than your opponent does when you play that card in order to trigger it. But um, it allows cards. It makes up for some of the shortcomings in the removal of purple of endurance, because you have these creatures like the new Dark Guardian, like really any of their large guard creatures, or even cards like Haunting Spirit, which will effectively trade for more than one of your opponent's creatures. Um, so, based on what we've said, you might think Mage is the obvious pick, and it definitely can be a great pick. Scout, comes in as, I think, the most well-rounded of these options. You can draft an aggressive Scout deck for Arena, or a more controlling Scout deck. The problem there is, of course, that you could end up with just a pile of cards that don't really cooperate. Or you can pick Archer, which has a tendency to be more aggressive because of its lack of powerful removal. The flip side of this, though, is you have a lot of reach, right? You have a lot of charge creatures that can attack right away. But Mage has quite a bit of reach too in the form of blue cards. So we're going to choose Mage here because I think the raw power level of Mage cards is pretty obvious most of the time, and we should be able to do something simple but effective in these colors. I say that right before we have a really interesting first pick here. Valmora Spymaster and Brilliant Experiment are the types of fun cards that I would probably ordinarily be most drawn to. Immolating Blast is sort of RNG. It's definitely a control card or a gotcha card, if you will. Um, but the power level is significantly higher, I think, than either of those other two cards. Uh, Brilliant Experiment is not a bad card, but it is a tempo loss. I mean, you're going to pay 3 magicka to affect the board in no significant way immediately. So I'm going to go with Immolating Blast. I don't like the idea of playing a deck from behind as a goal, laid out by my first pick card. But it's a removal spell. It is obviously a lot more powerful in the hands of the person playing it than the person it's being played against. So you can play around it a little bit. Well, we're going to go with this. It's the most powerful card by a significant margin. And this is an example of why you draft blue. A lot of the times you have Lightning Bolt at common. It's straightforward. It's effective. It's removal. It is reach as well. It's just a great card. These other two cards really aren't even anywhere near the same power level. Now this is a fascinating one, right? Because this highlights a couple of different things. Hive Warrior is a very effectively statted aggressive card. You're not in a particularly aggressive color combination though, so you might not have the support to roll with to ride with Hive Warrior right now. You have Telvanni Arcanist, which is a 3-drop creature, which is you want 2s and 3s because you don't want to miss those turns dropping creatures down. But you also have the fact that when it dies, it gives you another spell. This is almost a guaranteed 2-for-1. Not necessarily, it could face up against an opposing Hive Defender, for example. And then you have Hive Defender, which I think is one of the most effective creatures in the game. This, along with these two cards, says, early in the draft still, but says control deck, or at least value deck. But Hive Defender is a built-in 2-for-1, almost certainly, because unless your opponent's turn 4 play was Hive Warrior, you're likely taking out 2 opposing creatures with your Hive Defender. Hive Defender is a good top deck too, in that it slows your opponent's roll while allowing you the opportunity to advance your position behind it. So I think, Telvanni Arcanist is fun. I love playing with Telvanni Arcanist because that last gasp spell that it gives you could be anything. But I think Hive Defender is just a really solid, safe pick, so I'm going to go ahead and take that one. And now we have some, Imprison's kind of a trap. Imprison can be removal in the right deck. This is not, I know we're only 3 picks in, but it's not likely to be this deck that this is a removal spell. You should consider it as just a tempo spell, a stun a creature, because you're shackling a creature with it. As a consequence of that, it makes for a perfect comparison to Shrieking Harpy, which has a 2/1 for 2 with Prophecy and summon shackle a creature, is basically going to do Imprison's job better every single time you play it. So Shrieking Harpy is good for tempo, controls the board a little bit, can be useful tool in advancing an aggressor strategy or a reactive strategy. So I think that's definitely the pick. Imperial Siege Engine, kind of like Imprison, is contingent upon you having other cards in play at the time, and when possible, you want your cards to be able to stand alone. It's a good way to judge the power level of any given card this early, especially in a draft. So we'll take Shrieking Harpy. Some interesting picks. I recently drafted a deck where I had 3 Nib and Bay Cutthroats. This card is not good. Again, this is contingent on circumstances beyond your control a lot of the time, and it's going to be a 1/1 for 1, which is just not good. Soul Split is interesting. It obviously combos well with cards with Last Gasp, but even just sacrificing a creature that's been damaged, isn't about to die, putting a creature in both lanes then can be pretty effective. And then Somerset Shield Mage. I am a fan of any card that screws up your opponent's planned math, right? Like they put X amount of attack and X amount of defense in a lane because they only know what they see, right? Having cards like Somerset Shield Mage, although this is one of the weakest examples of this sort of effect, screw up what your opponent's trying to do. And anytime you can throw your opponent off of their plan, off their game, is an advantage for you. Increases the likelihood of you winning. I think Soul Split is likely a more powerful card, but Somerset Shield Mage is a creature that, again, as I mentioned with the last pick, doesn't require any setup, right? Like if it's turn 2 and I have nothing on the board, I cannot play Soul Split. I can play Somerset Shield Mage. Somerset Shield Mage is not a card I'm excited to run, but I think in this instance so far, it's the pick. So I'm not excited about it. Like I said, Soul Split more powerful card. Somerset Shield Mage safe pick, and right now we're trying to be responsible with our picks. So Crystal Talk Raptor is a potentially very powerful card. But it is a 1/1 for 2 that requires other cards to be functional. Right now we have 2 cards that work with it, although Immolating Blast doesn't really work with it. And then we have a Lesser Ward or a Cathay Rot Veteran. Lesser Ward is interesting. I It's a card that's power level is high enough that you might want to consider taking it over a card that does something on its own, because Lesser Ward does something similar to Somerset Shield Mage, completely screws up your opponent's combat math, their calculation for the power on each side of the board, and as a result, I think it's pretty valuable. I'm going to take it actually, so I can see if I can't get some value out of that. Another Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt is almost always going to be the pick when you're presented with it, so we take Lightning Bolt. Yeah, Cinch Tiger is just a really strong card. Fits kind of nicely in our late game power, suite of cards. So we're taking Cinch Tiger. The other options, Steel Sword doesn't do much on its own, is a very aggressive card, and Lurking Crocodiles are a very aggressive card too, and our deck is not looking particularly aggressive. Fate Weaver is great. Anything that says draw a card is good. It functions like a 2-for-1, like I was talking about. Riverhold Escort's not a bad card. It's super defensive, and we have no 3-drops. But the ability to get a good Ash Servant off and kill an opposing creature while leaving you with a 2/2, it's just kind of hard to resist. So we're going to take the Ash Servant. We need to be mindful of the fact we have a lot of 4-drops already, though. And Cunning Ally is a perfect card. Even if it doesn't trigger, our deck definitely has room for a 3/3 for 3. I think it's likely to be more useful in this ability because, again, the potential 2-for-1 value. Here we have 3 cards that this can get. Not great, not terrible. Execute's really solid though. Removal is at a premium, so we're just going to take the Execute. Tome of Alteration is potentially better than a 2-for-1. I mean, there are definitely going to be circumstances where you play Tome of Alteration on a creature that would otherwise die in combat. You kill an opposing creature with it, and you drew a card with it, and your creature's still alive. That said, Dunmer Nightblade's also got some pretty good value. We are short on 2-drops right now. We have a bunch of 4s already, so we're going to take Dunmer Nightblade. I think these are of comparable power levels in our deck, although in a vacuum, I think Tome of Alteration's likely better. Yeah, here we're going to take the Piercing Javelin. It's unconditional removal. It's a good prophecy. I would not mind either one of these cards being in my deck as well, but Piercing Javelin is just fantastic. Here, despite the fact we don't have a lot of 3-drops, Palace Conspirator is great because while it doesn't offer card advantage, it offers card quality, card selection. And so Palace Conspirator is going to let us ditch that Immolating Blast if we're ahead on board and we don't want to destroy all our own creatures for any other card in our deck, which is likely better in that circumstance. So we will take Palace Conspirator. Now at this point, a 3-drop slot's pretty weak still. Soul Split is looking better than it did last time. Sacrificing an Ash Servant or a Dunmer Nightblade, certainly not bad. But Imperial Legionnaire is just a fine pick. We only have one other 3-drop. We certainly are valuing blue cards more because of our Cunning Ally, but it's not a big enough deal right now to screw up our whole draft. So we'll take the Legionnaire. Okay. This is an interesting one. Corsair Ship is, in a vacuum, a 2/1 for 4. Okay, not great. Ash Servant is a 2 damage deal 2, and Shivering Apothecary is sort of a completely unknown quantity. I like Shivering Apothecary a lot. Corsair Ship is good for a aggressive game. Doesn't really look like that's what we're playing, although maybe we do. We're only halfway through the draft. Shivering Apothecary can be a lot of value, though, and it is almost guaranteed to screw up your opponent's math. As far as removal goes, we currently are sitting on 3, 4, 5 removal spells. So Ash Servant's not hugely necessary. Whereas I think Shivering Apothecary is the kind of card that could really get us a lot of advantage. Imagine getting a ward support or even just a +2/+0 support could really just present a huge problem for an opponent not suspecting it. So we are going to take this card. I'm not like thrilled about it, but it's a card I like playing with, and I think it's reasonable. Wow, so these are all cards I'd love to have in my deck. Cunning Ally's great, Piercing Javelin's great, Shocking Wamasu is wonderful. We don't have anything high-end like that. It's almost guaranteed 2-for-1. I honestly think in this circumstance, we got to take the Wamasu because these are just one. This is a 1-for-1, almost guaranteed, potentially prophecy. This is you're looking less and less likely to trigger. Not bad. We do need some more threes, but Shocking Lamassu is just is the whole package. We'll just avoid taking too many more cards like that. This one's rough. Crystal Tower Crafter is now looking a little better with one, two, maybe three, four, five, six, seven, 7 out of 17. I think Crystal Tower Crafter is going to be the pick. I'm not excited by it. This is probably my least favorite pick so far, but we'll take it because we have a lot of synergy with it, and it is a 2-drop creature. Okay, remember everything I said about Elixir of Deflection? It turns out Elixir of Deflection is not bad when it comes attached to a 2/2 creature and it costs 4. When it costs 5, it is super situational. I think Forsworn Guide is a reasonable pick. We can combo it with maybe Palace Conspirator, maybe Cunning Ally, maybe Ash Servant, maybe Shivering Apothecary, maybe Shocking Wamasu. So we got a lot of stuff to work with it. Skilled Blacksmith has no synergy with our deck yet. I'm gonna go ahead and take a small risk. Take the Forsworn Guide. Manticora is one of the most powerful cards that you can draft. It's a guaranteed, I would say, 2-for-1. And we don't have a whole lot of high end. We are a deck that looks like it can get to that part of the game, so we're gonna take the Manticora. Now with I think 7 spells, Abyssinian Navigator doesn't look terrible. Neither one of these are real exciting. We don't really look like a deck that's gonna want a Camelorn Hero. We do want to draw some cards though, so we'll take the Navigator. Uh, this is a good one here. Regini Highwayman is just incredibly powerful. If this doesn't get removed the turn you play it, and your opponent's not on some blindingly fast deck, this will win you the game. Priest of the Moon's kind of boring. I love the art, but as far as prophecies go, it's obviously pretty inferior to the Knight of the Hour. And Knight of the Hour, while certainly a good, powerful card, is no Regini Highwayman. So we're going to take the Highwayman. A little bit of regret for not taking the Knight of the Hour because we got offered another Highwayman. In this case, we're going to play a card that screws up our opponent's math. Frenzied Witchman, I think, is a perfectly reasonable pick here. We're still a little slim on threes, and we got enough earlier stuff that we could definitely mess up our opponent's plan here. And Golden Saint's exactly the card I was talking about. This card is incredibly powerful. I don't mind a 4/4 guard for 6 without the thing triggering. If it ever triggers, right, like how do you lose that game? There's really no consideration for Elixir of the Defender. Penitus Oculatus Agent is super contingent on certain board states for being particularly useful. So Golden Saint's just going to be a slam here. Oh man, this is rough. These are all cards I want in this deck. I think the third Lightning Bolt, though, is just a shoe-in for our deck, but we would be happy with any of these. We'll take we'll take a Cinch Tiger, but now we really just want, I mean, we love a 5-drop or so, but Cinch Tiger is just so much value. 11 in stats for 6 Magicka. Uh, you know, Current Quartermaster's not bad. Potentially screws up your opponent's math because of that dagger it gives you. I'm not excited by this card by any means. There's some consideration for taking Calm if we had better creatures to trade into our opponent's stuff, but we really don't. So we will take Crown Quartermaster. Here, I'm going to slam the Telvanni Arcanist. Just 2-for-1, 3-drop, so we're balanced here. Imperial Reinforcements, not a bad card. It's really effective in Chaos Arena and Solo Arena. Our deck just doesn't look like really built to support it. Whereas I think Telvanni Arcanist is the kind of card that could get us to the later stages of the game where we're casting our just insanely powerful bombs. So here, I think I will grab the Tome of Alteration now that I got a good array of stuff to play it on. We got our Legendary. This is our last pick. Descendant of Alkosh might be the best turn 1 play there is. Nakreen is unplayable. Was also the final target for Jalara's Hunt, if you remember that wonderful adventure. And then Haffinger Marauder is a really powerful card. We have one 5-drop and it's Piercing Javelin. Haffinger Marauder doesn't really fit into our strategy, but it has to be answered right away. It is a 5/3 for 5. I'll take Haffinger Marauder. Okay. So those are the picks. That's why I took each card. We're going to do one game with the deck, just to hopefully so I can put the stuff I just talked about into practice. You can see how that all works, and yeah, we will. I'll finish the recording a while, in a little bit. Okay, so we're playing against Extreme, the Untouchable. We don't have the Ring of Magicka, so we're going to throw all this back and hopefully get some earlier drops. Okay, we are getting punished a little bit for our Forsworn Guide pick. We have nothing to work with that. We do have a removal spell, and okay. So we have a sort of a, an oh crap button. Hopefully our opponent doesn't elixir out like a Windkeep spell sword. Just pass. That's a great sign for us. And the Imperial Legionnaire should be able to contest whatever our opponent does pretty well. Our play is going to be pretty contingent on what he does. What do you think the odds are this survives, right? Um, we're going to play it. If he plays a guard, we can lightning bolt it. Um, if he removes it, not the end of the world. We lay down our Legionnaire. Maybe we harpy his card. But the potential to get this going, that's got to be Firebolt, right? But the potential to get it going on an open board is just too good, right? Okay. So, what do we got here? Interesting that he's got 2 plays this turn. So he wants to make sure he removes that. That is interesting. Um, So this is a heads up play by him, saving these cards like this. We don't really have a good answer. I can unsummon it, force a swing from the Harpy into the Forsworn Guide. It's not great. If I lay down... Yeah, problem is... Well, if I lay down this, I can contest both of these. One Magica off doing anything real exciting. So, next turn I can Harpy Forsworn Guide the Harpy. So I think I'm just going to do this. Right off the cat. It's not terribly surprising I lost it. And, this doesn't line up particularly well with any plans he might have. He's going to lose one of these if he swings into that. Well, that was a good play by our opponent, though. Holding both of those. The temptation can be, obviously, to just play this on turn 2 so you have a presence. And then proceed to get no value from it. Sure, Enchanted Plate is doing a great job of exactly what I was talking about, screwing up my math. Let's see what he's got.
My friend would like to say hello.
Okay. That is super surprising. Not sure why he would do that. How do I work this to my advantage? I think I shackle that. I swing. And then I Forsworn Guide. And I do this because I feel like I'm not ahead of him for Golden Saint, but which is, I think, the only play from him that makes sense here. But I can answer Golden Saint pretty well next turn with an Immolating Blast. At least I can hope to. And shackling another creature next turn and allowing him to just dump his stuff on the board plays nicely into Immolating Blast. And now you're going to see some great Frenzied Witchman value. I'm actually just going to swing into that.
For the reach, let us stand together. Reach!
And,
For honor and glory.
Now this is unfortunate because this is about to become a 3-3. So we got to get this off the board. I've had enough of that. Let's see what he does here. Obviously, we'd love to catch him with just like an amazing Immolating Blast at some point. But, with this with these cards in hand, we need to leverage the cards we have on board. Sure.
Be on your guard.
Okay. Well, there's the Golden Saint, right? So we just
Back where you came from.
play Golden Saint. Try to excise our value this way. I'm just going to leave both of these with 1 toughness. I've never actually seen a Reachman Shaman get so much value before. This guy is definitely leveraging that ability really, really effectively. Him flooding the board, though, now would present a pretty great opportunity to get Immolating Blast off. It's an 8-drop. Well, if he puts it over here, we have a 50% chance of just killing it. When we Immolating Blast here in a second. I'm really curious to see what this is. Auroran Sentry, perhaps? Shocking Wamasu. Okay.
Stand fast. Blood and fire.
So, just gonna blast. And, execute. Just leave our guy up there. Don't feel like swinging. Hopefully we take 4, hitting a prophecy. Although 3 of the 4 cards in our hands are our prophecies. I'm just real excited to do that. Now it's time to see if his top end is bigger than ours. Obviously we don't want him drawing cards. We can Ash Servant Lightning Bolt to clean this up. Well, we could have executed if we had saved our execute, but we did not. So we will just do this. See where he goes from here. If he's ramping into something huge, we have Javelin. We also have the Manticora in our deck. That's great for him. Opponent's got a lot of great cards. And this represents a pretty big problem for this lane. We do have the Shivering Apothecary for some extra value there. I don't mind. Okay. So it might just be Javelin, Lightning Bolt. Actually, it's just Javelin. See what we get here. That's exactly what I was talking about earlier. Just an absolute ton of value we just got there. Sure, up to 11 Magicka. Now, obviously, we're just hoping they don't have, like, Odaving or something like that, right?
I stand to serve.
Sure.
A strong arm is
Sure.
what you need. Be on your guard.
Okay. These cards are all manageable. I don't think it's quite Manticora time. Let's see if this works.
Let's shed some
It
light
did.
on
Perfect. That lets us remove this. And then we'll just do like that. So that can swing into there. Now we have Manticora to answer something big. We got more removal in our hand. Opponent has nothing. That to me honestly says that my opponent has Odaving in hand, which I know sounds so insane. But I'm going to Manticora that. Oh, but if he has Dawn's Wrath, or he can't have Dawn's Wrath, he's not in yellow. So I'm actually gonna do this. Keep these beyond Odoving.
I have you now. By dawn and dusk, I move as a
We're
shadow.
not particularly weak to Ice Storm, and he could have Odoving, but we can hit him for lethal next turn, I think, if he plays Odoving. Yeah.
My
So,
fight is done.
well, what do you know? So eventually, all our high value cards paid off, and we got there. So that is yeah, that's my best attempt at like an explanation for how
Another
to
step
draft.
closer
I know
to
it's
ultimate
difficult
glory.
because each color combination is different, but I think the principles I outlined are pretty universal. I made sure not to draft any cards that I picked just because they're fun and wacky, which I know is sort of my thing with drafts. Um, that's a wrap. I will I'm heading out of town till Sunday the 23rd. So I will finish the draft, maybe that Monday or Tuesday or something like that. I'll just cut it off here for now. And I hope you all had a good time watching, and I will see you all on the ladder or maybe playing Arena too. Bye bye.